All right. So I guess now you understand what the plan was.
Absolutely. At Colts Law, we talk Indianapolis Colts football.
We're going to stick to what we know, fundamentals and technique, 1% better every day.
Thank you for joining Colts Law. I'm Lawrence Owen, and today I have a special guest, Aaron Wilson, who has covered the Houston Texans since 2015. And what better way to know a team than get a hold of somebody who's covered them for a while? And, you know, they are a divisional rival, the Indianapolis Colts, and most of us really don't know a whole lot about them. So I want to introduce you to Aaron Wilson. Thank you for joining the stream, Wilson. Appreciate that.
Hey, Lawrence, thanks for having me.
Why don't you go ahead and give those that are viewing right now a little bit of information about yourself and where they can find you.
Right. Well, I've covered the NFL for 20 years. I previously covered the Baltimore Ravens for the Baltimore Sun and the Texans for the Houston Chronicle. And I am now writing for Sports Talk 790 of iHeart Radio. And I'm been writing for them for about the past month. So I just started with them and enjoying that so far. And I'm on Twitter at @AaronWilson_NFL. Please give me a follow. And yeah, I appreciate if any Colts fans follow me. And I'm on Instagram, AaronWilson7128.
Okay. So again, I appreciate you being here to give us a little bit of inside information about the Houston Texans. Now, what I want to bring up first and foremost is the fact that after last season, the Houston Texans kind of went with new GM, new head coach. I'd like you to give us a little bit of information about the new GM, Nick Caserio, and the head coach, David Culley.
Right. Nick is a really hard worker, very dedicated scout, someone that's worked his way up the ranks and was one of the architects of the New England Patriots' 6 Super Bowl wins. And he was Bill Belichick's right-hand man for much of that. They went through some times where they had Scott Pioli, they had Mike Lombardi, but Nick has been present for all of it, and he's a key figure in a lot of the big roster decisions that the Patriots made. And he's very organized, very meticulous, a very hard worker, someone that, definitely look up the word dedicated in the dictionary. There's Nick Caserio's picture next to it. He's someone that works tirelessly. He negotiates even sometimes while he's exercising. He, will, multitask that way. And when I think of Nick, I think of someone that's got some talent for evaluation. He's a good negotiator. I've talked to a lot of agents that have negotiated with him. He cuts to the chase really quickly, and he does a good job. And he's obviously, had a dramatic overhaul of the roster, and he's trying to fix the team as quickly as he can. It's not just about putting in good football players. He wants good people. He's very sincere about that. He wants to have a good culture. And he wants it to be a hardworking, kind of no-nonsense, blue-collar, very Patriots-like, which is obviously not a surprise. Then David Culley, who comes from the Baltimore Ravens, career assistant, never had been up for head coaching jobs before, and he was the Baltimore Ravens associate head coach. He was assistant head coach and passing game coordinator and receivers coach. He's an Andy Reid guy, and he's someone that had worked in this state before, Texas A&M, Texas El Paso, the college ranks. And now, he gets a chance to be the guy. And his style, I would describe it as positive. He's someone that definitely wants his players to be steeped in the fundamentals. And when I think of David, I think of someone that, he's kind of been an underdog before. I think he's going to try to have just a very, upbeat type atmosphere, respectful. I don't expect him to be, I think he's stern and demanding. And as Ozzie Newsome told me, David will be very demanding of players, but at the same time, he's very caring about the guys. So that gets the buy-in from the players and gets them to play hard. Of course, none of all this matters if the players aren't good enough. And that's something that, is to be determined. Most people think Vegas has them not favored to win any of the games, including the opener against rookie quarterback and Trevor Lawrence and the Jaguars. So we'll see how they do. I mean, you have to play the games. You can't just play them on paper, obviously. All of us that have covered the NFL for a long time have learned that, you can't just do projections based on, I don't think they have a good roster. I mean, we all do this. We all look at it and we try to pick the game or decide how many games is the team going to win. The honest answer is you don't know. This team is like a whole new team. I mean, there's no Deshaun Watson. There are so many changes on defense. They've gone from a 4-3, from a 3-4 to a 4-3 under Lovie Smith, new defensive coordinator. They've made a ton of changes, Lawrence. So, yeah, let's get into it all, and I'll answer any questions you have.
Wow, that's interesting. I didn't realize that they switched defensive schemes. That is a huge jump, especially with certain losses, the turnover that the Texans have had this past offseason, including players like J.J. Watt, and then, of course, Deshaun Watson, talking about him wanting a trade, and then, of course, the allegations that are against him, so there's question marks up in that. I will talk a little bit about Deshaun Watson. Last year, before the season started, when a certain previous head coach traded away his number one wide receiver to the Arizona Cardinals, I was one that actually came out and said, you know what, I think Deshaun Watson will have a career year. And even though the record does not state it, when I go and I look at what he did last year as a player, as a quarterback in the NFL, it seems to me that if the Texans record-wise was at least competitive, I think he would have been in the MVP conversation, because he had a career year in completion percentage, highest of his ever at over 70%. He led the NFL in passing yardage. He had, 33 touchdowns compared to only 7 interceptions. He led the league in yards for catch and air yards attempted. So this is something that, in my opinion, and he had his highest passer rating of his career at over 112, which was amazing. He did a fantastic job without his number one receiver. And the reason I said that I thought that he would have a career year was a simple fact that he would be forced to get through his reads a lot faster, right? And find that open receiver rather than kind of focusing on that one go-to guy that everybody knew who DeAndre Hopkins was, probably maybe one of the top 2 or 3 receiver in the NFL. Some would argue number 1. What are your thoughts on the progression as a quarterback that Deshaun Watson had last year without having his receiver?
I think he did grow as a quarterback. He learned how to incorporate other targets. He adjusted to not just, the fact that Will Fuller was his number one, but then when he lost Fuller to a PED suspension, then he adapted to throwing more to Brandon Cooks. And so at times they had injuries at receiver. They had Randall Cobb go out, so they had to play Kiki Kuti and Chad Hansen, and so they had to work in other players. And I thought that he did a masterful job of that. His performance on the field was outstanding, and he was very elusive. He was able to throw on the run, ad-lib very well. He, was the passing champion for the NFL in terms of yardage, and I thought he had a career best year, and he was a Pro Bowler. But, yeah, when I look at Deshaun, I think that, he was absolutely stellar. It was impressive, and you wonder how many games they win without him. They won 4, but they just had a historically bad defense, and it was we couldn't stop anybody. But he was someone, they didn't have much of a running game. He didn't always have great pass protection, but he got it done.
Yes. Hey, thanks for watching this video. Do me a personal favor real quick, please. Smash that like button, hit subscribe if you're not subscribed, and tag that notification bell so you are notified next time I go live. And while you're at it, after the video, go down here, hit the description of the video, that drop box, right? There's a link down there, not only to my Patreon, which, by the way, you get full access for only $5 a month, but also there is a link to multiple other things, including where you can find me on Twitter and Instagram and my merch shop. Make sure to check out the Colts Law merch shop. The link is in the description of this video. There are a ton of high quality, reasonably priced items there that you can choose from. And all you got to do is just click one button and you can go and check out all these great merchandise items. When I talk about that turnover, what are some of the major additions and major losses player-wise this past offseason that the Houston Texans
J.J.
had?
Watt is him being cut at his request, then signing with the Arizona Cardinals. That's pretty big. They cut their starting center, Nick Martin, replaced him with Justin Britt. On defense, they've added Christian Kirksey, Kevin Pierre-Louis, Desmond King, Malik Collins. They have also signed Terrence Mitchell, who I think will be a starting corner for them. And, you look at the offensive side of the football, they traded for Marcus Cannon. They also traded for Shaq Lawson on defense. To recap, they have added Lane Taylor at right guard, and I think once his ACL feels better, he'll compete for a starting job. And then, they signed 2 running backs, Mark Ingram and Philip Lindsay. They brought back David Johnson on a restructured contract. They signed Tyrod Taylor. He's now the QB1. They drafted Davis Mills in the 3rd round. They have traded for tight end Ryan Izzo, cut Darren Fells, re-signed Pharaoh Brown. We could probably have a whole podcast on their personnel moves. They signed Chris Conley, a wide receiver. They bring back Brandon Cooks on a restructured deal. They restructured Laramie Tunsil's contract. And, did a lot of restructures to pay for the bills for all the signings that they've been doing. They just signed Neville Hewitt after the draft, who started for the Jets at linebacker. And, you look all around the team and it's different. And I think it's been a watershed of change.
I'm going to add a couple questions here. A lot of people have asked questions that look very similar on my social media when I put this out. Richard Evans and Ivan Burton ask a very similar question, so I'm going to bring this to you. With all that the Texans have gone through over the last 18 months, what is a bright spot that national media and fans inside or outside of Houston can look forward to this season?
Bright spot to me might be that they become more athletic at the linebacker position with Christian Kirksey, with having Kevin Pierre-Louis to go with Zach Cunningham. I think that could be a good position for them. The defensive line with Malik Collins. So I think they've changed the front 7 and they've gotten a little bit more athletic. And I think that's a good change for them. And we'll see obviously on the field. Having Lovie Smith, I think, is a chance to improve the defense. That's where really it needed to start. They put a lot of emphasis on the defense, and to me, that's where obviously it's awful for them to not have Deshaun Watson. He had already requested a trade. Now he has legal problems, but so they have the Tyrod Taylor addition, and Tyrod's been kind of a caretaker for a couple of other teams. But yeah, something to be positive about, I think, is better athleticism in the front 7.
Okay. Frank the Tank wants to know, what are the expectations for the team and the new coach? Kind of basically, in my opinion, also kind of adding to this question, what style of offense and defense do you think we will see with this new team?
I was talking with Lovie Smith actually last night at an event at Texas Southern University, and he said that they're going to run, hit, and have attitude. And I expect them to be a team that's going to get better at taking away the football. It's something that you can coach. They only had 9 takeaways last year. It was terrible. And, yeah, I expect that to improve. And when I look at, the offense, I think they'll run the football more. That's something they did with the Ravens a lot. And I think with Tyrod Taylor, not Deshaun Watson being under center, I would expect them to be a team that runs more. And they'll try to emphasize the run and see how that goes. That's one of the things that can be an equalizer. If you have a good running game, you have a solid defense, then at least you're competitive. At least you're in the game. So I think they're going to try to play where they stay close and see if they can win games in the 4th quarter. But, yeah, I expect them to try to be a physical football team.
So you've been kind of bouncing around this for a while, calling, you said that they named Tyrod Taylor the number 1, their starting quarterback.
They don't name anything. I'm saying that.
Oh,
yeah.
You are saying that. Okay, all right.
I'm saying he'll be QB1. Yeah,
okay.
At least to start. Obviously, you have to see how Davis Mills does. They drafted him in the 3rd round. He only played 11 starts in college, so he's got to get some experience. I don't think they'll do anything to, over-accelerate the development. He's someone that, you have him in the 3rd round, and you got to see how he does. He's just in his first couple, weeks of practicing here. and it's impossible to evaluate him. Let's see how he does in a preseason game. I couldn't answer the question right now whether he's going to start, at some point during the year. But my expectation right now, I mean, it's obviously to be determined, is that Tyrod Taylor will be out there against the Jaguars.
All right. The elephant in the room with all the questions that, the majority you can expect is about Watson. As it sits right now, as far as I know, the NFL has put no kind of limitations on Watson. We do know that Watson asked for a trade. Do you think that, what are your thoughts about the possibility of Deshaun Watson possibly playing this year at all?
I think that his legal situation would have to be determined for him to be able to get on the field. In my opinion, I think the NFL would possibly consider him for commissioner's exempt list, and they can look at I don't think they're going to levy a suspension until they have a feel for what's the final and the nature and what kind of confidentiality is there. They've been interviewing some of the plaintiffs from the sexual assault cases where they have alleged that sexual misconduct committed by Deshaun Watson, allegedly. So what you have there, you have parallel investigations. You have the Houston Police Department, which has not filed any charges as of today, and you have the civil lawsuits, which were not close to any settlements, my understanding. And then once you have some kind of closure with that, then the NFL want to look at and try to get, depending on the confidentiality of those documents, are there NDAs? Can they go off of what the information they have, enough of interviews? And then how can they determine a punishment? How fast do they do it? But they've been working on it since the cases first arose. So, I would think Lisa Farrell, who's heading the investigation for the NFL, would have a pretty good handle on it and be able to present a recommendation to Roger Goodell at some point. But until it's done, I mean, like the NFL, let's say that they make a decision, and they wouldn't now, they would be jumping the gun because they don't know what's going to come out. They don't know, is there going to be criminal charges? So what if it's something where they decide initially, let's say it's 6 games, and then they later have to increase the punishment in their view because they think it's more serious, that there's, more to it, or they just make a decision based on public relations and the fallout from whatever they do. So, yeah, I think there's a lot of ways they can go with that, and there's nothing, imminent with that. So, yeah, it's basically a to be continued.
Well, I appreciate you answering that. Most Colts fans don't really know a whole lot about what's going on around there in that situation. Well, I have taken up enough of your time. I appreciate you so much for joining here and answering questions about the Houston Texans so that us Colts fans and other people who watch my channel know a little bit more about what to expect in this upcoming 2021 season. Go ahead and give the listeners and watchers a little about yourself and where they can find you once more.
Yeah, Aaron Wilson. I'm on Twitter at Aaron Wilson _NFL and Instagram Aaron Wilson 7128.
All right. Thank you again. And until next time, have a good one.
Just because a player's not a household name doesn't mean we can't make him a household name.